I am William Jamart.
And I'm Hattie.
How is everyone doing? This is our podcast, What Are We Doing? And we are continuing our year-long journey into emotions. And so this month, we're actually going to be discussing doubt. So yeah, we're going to get rolling into doubt. So what is your...
Sorry, just getting the dog situated.
So what is your first thoughts when you think of the emotion of doubt?
So I have a lot to say about doubt, but I think the easiest way for me to sum it up is doubt to me is like the gateway drug for fear. And I think there's nothing wrong with doubt if you can leave it at doubt. But I think doubt, I think fear, we've talked about fear before.
Yes.
And fear is a super strong emotion. It's like one of your most basic, most primal emotions, and that's partly why it's so strong, helps you survive, evolutionarily, all that makes sense.
Yes.
But in today's day and age, there are plenty of things you can do to actually die. But in your normal day-to-day life, you're not faced with life and death, usually. Yeah. Right? We can make all sorts of concessions, like driving at fast speeds, or not wearing seatbelts, right? Or dangerous sport. You can make all sorts of qualifiers. But in general, you wake up, you go to school, or you go to work, you come home, you're not...
in high risk.
High risk of literally dying. So, at least... we are very fortunate to be in that case. Yeah. But I still feel that fear can ruin all sorts of things, whether it's you're trying to elevate yourself and go for a promotion, or whether you're in your interpersonal life. Mm-hmm. And you can have all these fears, but they may not really come into play unless you have doubt. So doubt opens the door for fear to creep in, right? Mm. I have fear that my partner will abandon me, right? Yeah. I think that's a fear I've always had in my life. We've discussed this, right? But that, right now, that fear is not really getting the best of me because I feel secure in our relationship. Mm. But if I feel doubt in our relationship, then that opens the door, and now that fear is overwhelming me, and that's all I can focus on. And the fear overcomes me.
Yeah.
But when I can close the door, when doubt is out of the equation, yes, you could be in a freak accident and die. Yes, you could decide that I'm really annoying and you don't love me anymore, right? These are all legitimate possibilities. They're not extremely, the most common thing that's ever happened in the world, but you can find plenty of examples of people who's my significant other was killed in this horrific way, or got cancer early, or
all these different situations.
Yeah, there's plenty of examples. Right, plenty of examples of it. So, but does that keep me up at night? No, not anymore. Because I'm feeling more secure. And I could say the same thing about gymnastics, right? I always bring everything back to gymnastics, but you could say it with any sport, right? Flips on the beam. That's scary because you could fall off and get hurt. Right? But if you can do the flips on the floor beam, you can do it on the high beam. There's no difference other than it being taller, but the margin of error and the thing that you need to be able to do is exactly the same on the floor beam as the high beam. If your body can do it 10 times on the floor beam perfectly, you can do it on the high beam perfectly. It's just conventional. No, the height doesn't change the skills that you're doing. It changes the consequence if you don't do it right.
Well, yeah,
but it doesn't change the skill. If you can do...
But if me looking at this, the height at which you do something definitely should have an influence on your ability to do it. I may be able to shoot basketball.
Pause. It doesn't influence your ability to do it. If you can do it on the floor beam, you can do it on the high beam. But it influences your confidence in your ability to do it. And it influences how much doubt you have about whether or not you're going to successfully do it, right? It's not scary on the floor beam, because even if you have the doubt, I might not make it, it's the consequences of not making it are so small. So it's okay if I have doubt about my ability to do this, because I'm not going to hurt myself. If I fall off, I'm falling 4 inches off the ground. I'm not going to hurt myself. Whereas on the high beam, if you have any doubt that you're not going to make it, suddenly you're like, ooh, the consequences are really bad. I'm not going to do this skill.
But the consequences are, like, whether you... we're getting off on a tangent here. But whether you, like... when you're on the low beam, like...
So the low consequences beam is literally this high off the ground. Like
yeah, so the consequences aren't that severe.
Correct.
At the high beam, the consequences are severe.
Correct.
So that in itself...
The consequences of doing it incorrectly. But if you have confidence that you can do it correctly, and you have no doubt, there's no doubt in your mind that you're going to do it perfectly
But the
correctly,
consequences are still the same. If you, like...
No, you just said the consequences are different.
The consequences are different because the height is different. So
yes.
Therefore, like, the skill, in my opinion, is not, like... The skill may be the same, but because the consequences are different, like, the stakes are a little bit higher. So, therefore, like... That, in my mind, that would be reason enough to create, like, some doubt.
That's exactly right. But it doesn't change. Absolutely. The only difference between low beam and high beam is the consequences if you do it wrong, and therefore your mentality. Right? Like, it creates doubt. But the mechanics...
Well, the consequences create doubt. Right? That's what you're saying? The consequences create doubt?
No. It's close. So, the mechanics of what your body needs to do does not change from high beam to low beam. It is exactly the same.
But the consequences for which you do it,
if you do it wrong, are not the same. And so therefore, what changes is your what can change is your confidence and the doubt you have, right? So if you do it 10 times out of 10 perfectly on the low beam, do you think you're going to be scared to try again on the low beam? Do you think you're going to have a high probability of doing it right on the low beam?
No, but like...
Probably. You just did it 10 times perfectly.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I'll do it again. That's no big deal. But if let's say you only hit 9 out of 10, right? And then you try to go up to the high beam, you're like, well, the 90% success rate is pretty high, but a 10% failure rate may also be pretty high, just depending on the person, right? And so then you have doubt in your mind. Am I going to, when I go for it, am I going to hurt myself or am I not? There's a 1 in 10 chance that this is going to end up badly. Do I want to even try?
But even if you did do it 10 out of 10 on the low beam, like, the consequences are still more once you go to the high beam.
Yes, but the point is, when you do gymnastics and when you coach gymnastics, all that matters is your mentality. So if you feel, seriously, they would tell me this all the time, you have to know 100% without a shadow of a doubt that you're going to do it perfectly before you even start.
Okay.
Like, that's how confident you need to be in your ability to do it right.
Okay.
And so if you're that confident, there's no possibility that you're going to hurt yourself. That's in your mind, that's not a thing. And so you can do it without any fear because you have no doubt. There's no doubt that you're going to do it.
Yeah, so you're like, I think we're getting into like the weeds a little bit, but
I think you just have never been a gymnast and don't quite understand.
Well, I feel like you're talking about like the mentality with which you approach like doing gymnastics.
And it could go for any sport, right? Like, the only reason to be scared to do something in your sport is if you have doubt that you will do it right. Like, if you catch every reception, do you feel confident that someone will throw you and you'll catch it? Or do you feel like, oh crap, I'm going to let the whole team down?
No, I feel like I'm going to catch it every time.
Right. So there's no doubt in your mind that you're going to catch it. So there's no fear about what happens if I don't catch it. Right? You don't care what happens if you don't catch it because you're never going to not catch it. Right?
But there are times where I don't catch it and like maybe I don't necessarily...
Yeah, the world isn't perfect, but I'm just saying beforehand, before they've thrown it to you, you're not thinking about all the negative things that could happen, and you're not afraid of all those things because you have no doubt that you'll catch it. It doesn't always end up that way. Sometimes you miss it, sometimes you're tackled, sometimes you drop it, right? But like, you're not worried about that beforehand because
you don't have any doubt.
Correct. Whereas if you had a lot of doubt, then you're afraid. Like, you're running down, you're like, oh God, I might not make this. And that might affect your performance.
So you're talking about, like, the doubt
about your ability.
The doubt of your ability to do the skill.
Yes.
And I'm more thinking about, like, the gymnast is thinking about, like, there's a separate consequence. Like, we're doing the same skill, but there's a separate there's a different consequence.
Right, and that's what creates the fear.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And the doubt.
Well, it doesn't necessarily create the doubt. But if there is any doubt, that additional fear makes it so much more difficult mentally to do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could have all the doubt you want, but if there's no fear with it, right? That's why you train new skills on the low beam. You have tons of doubt. I've never done this skill before. But what's the consequence if it goes wrong? Nothing. So why would I be afraid? Even though I'm overcome with doubt about my ability to do this.
Yes.
So, and that's also how I feel with any other type of thing. Like, let's say you're applying for a promotion. There might be fear associated with that. What if I don't get it? What if I ask for too much in my raise? Like, what if people think whatever about me?
Yeah.
But if you have no doubt that you'll get the promotion, or that you're, like, maybe you might not get the promotion, but you have no doubt that you're deserving of the promotion, then all that scary stuff, like, doesn't matter. Right? Whereas, or in a relationship, I think they might not be faithful. That's the doubt. I doubt that they're being faithful. Then anytime they go do things without you or are gone for a long time,
you have fear that they're...
Yeah, whereas if you have no doubt, they can be gone all they need to be gone. Like, I'll miss you. I wish I was there. I wish you were here, but...
Yeah, there's not that fear.
Yeah. So that's why I classify it as the gateway drug. Because that fear can always be there, but it won't, at least for me, the anxious person that I am, overthinking and overanalyzing person that I am, that fear doesn't become something I have to wrestle with or really experience unless there's also doubt.
Yeah, I kind of like, for me, I definitely, like, I see it along the same lens that you see it, like, but more of, like, my fears kind of leads, like, it's kind of reversed. Like, my fears leads to, like, my doubts.
Interesting.
And so, like, my fears...
Now I understand why you were like, this gymnastics thing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because, like, I kind of feel like my fears, like, leads to me, like, doubting things. And I was actually listening to a podcast, and they were reading an excerpt from a book, and they talked about this very thing of, like, doubts and fears, and, like, how you were putting it, like, asking for promotions, and things like that. And I think a lot of times for me specifically, in, like, looking at, like, job applications and promotions and things like that, it's like my fears always, like, lead me to, like, doubting myself, or, like, not follow, or doubting whether, like, I can do this, and then maybe choosing not to do it as a result of my doubt.
So that's really interesting to me. Can you explain maybe an example, either one you make up or one that you've experienced? Because I still, as we've talked about, I've experienced it the reverse. The doubt lets the fear in. Like, maybe the fear is always there, but it sounds to me like you experience the fear, and then that creates doubt.
Yes.
So I guess I'm trying to understand, like, how that's the case. Because going back to our wide receiver example, why does the fear bother you if you have no doubt? Like, it doesn't bother you if there's no doubt. So
I don't fear that I'm gonna let the team down. I don't fear that, like, I'm not gonna do my part. I don't fear that, like,
And is that because you feel like you have control over those things?
Yeah, or even when I apply for a job, like, I don't fear that, like, I'm not going to get it. So therefore, like, because I don't fear it, like, I don't have any doubt about whether I am able to do it.
Okay, so give us an example, real or made up, where you do have the fear and then you do have the doubt. Like, how does that work?
So there.
Let us into your mind.
Yeah, so there may be like, so say there is like an IT company,
sure.
And like I fear that like I don't know very much about computers. Like I know how to hook up game systems or like fix a TV and make sure that was working properly and making sure the cords are fixed, but like working on computers and stuff, like I don't know if that's, or working in IT, I don't know if that's really my cup of tea.
So to me,
I doubt that, like.
But to me, that's not a fear, right? That's just a self-assessment, right? I assess that I don't know much about computers. Or that's just a doubt. I doubt I'd be able to do this job well because my assessment is I don't know much about computers. Like, where's the fear there? What's the fear?
Well, I guess the fear is that, like, I wouldn't be able to do this job.
Okay, so the bad outcome you want to avoid is not being able to do the job or not doing a good job at it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're afraid of doing a poor job.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so, like, I begin to, like, doubt myself, and then, as a result, like, I don't apply for the job.
Gotcha. And so in that case, the fear is, I don't want it. Whatever job I get, I'm afraid of doing a bad job at it.
Yes.
And so, therefore, I'm going to search for jobs I feel I can do well. Oh, I've come across this job. I'm looking at the expectations.
Yeah, or I'm interested in, yeah.
I'm interested in it. I'm doing some self-assessment, and now I have doubt that I can do the job well. Right? I may not know about computers, therefore I don't know I can do a good job at this job. Therefore, the probability of the bad outcome that I want to avoid, me doing a bad job, is high, so I don't apply for that job.
Yeah.
Is that how you're kind of...
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, I guess... I mean, I definitely understand that thought process. Because I certainly feel the same in terms of there are certain jobs I would apply for and certain ones I wouldn't because I feel like I'm qualified versus ones I don't feel like I'm qualified. Mm-hmm. But I still don't really have like a fear about it. Like I definitely agree with you. I take a great pride in my work, and when I do get a job, I want to be excellent at it. Mm-hmm. Right? So I definitely identify with that motivation and that feeling. But I wouldn't say I necessarily feel fear when I'm confronted with a job that I don't think I'm qualified to do.
Yeah, and I think like there could be a lot of things that like contribute to that.
Okay.
In terms of like our backgrounds and like I think the way our culture and like our experiences have kind of led us like through life.
And do you mean like you and me specifically, or do you mean like us?
Yeah, I think collectively, and I think you and me specifically. Just in terms of like socioeconomic backgrounds and stuff, things like that, mm-hmm. And like even though we went to the same college, like the decision behind going to that college was not like we did not follow the same path, and so that like that informs like your decision making in the future.
Sure.
And I think that in a lot of ways is why like we have different viewpoints about like not viewpoints but different pathways to like from fear to doubt or doubt to fear.
I totally see what you're saying, and I think one thing that you at least touched on with this job example, that is another aspect I wanted to talk about with doubt, is I think the doubt can be especially debilitating when it has to do with your evaluation of your ability to do something, right? Or when it's someone else you care about controlling something you care about, right? Because I guess I don't exactly know what I'm trying to say, but there are certain things in life that are scary, but it's out of your control.
Yes.
Right? And so doubt doesn't really play, in my mind, a big role about whether you experience that fear or not. Because there's no control about it. Whereas, like, with imposter syndrome, that's something I struggled with a lot in grad school. I wouldn't say that that's well in my past, like, don't ever struggle with that anymore, but I definitely feel like I struggle with it to a much, much lesser degree than I did. And it was, I didn't feel confident in my abilities to do what I was being asked to do, and therefore I was afraid of being, like, exposed as like an idiot or a fraud, or like, I don't deserve to be here, I don't know what I'm doing. And so that was a personal evaluation, like I had doubt in my personal ability, right? Or if it's like you're teaching your child to drive and you have doubt in their ability, whether their actual ability to drive or whether you doubt their diligence in paying attention to what they need to be paying attention to, right? That can give you huge fear. And you don't have control, but they have the control, right? They're driving, they have control. Whereas something like getting struck by lightning, there are things that you can do, right? Like if it's a big lightning storm, don't go outside, or the small.
Something in the tree.
Right. But on the grand, like on the little bit grander scheme, you really don't have a ton of control over freak accidents. And so in those cases, like, doubt is less of a factor. So I guess the summary observation I'm trying to make is that when there's elements of something that either you personally can control, I can control my ability, like I can study harder, I can, think better, I can prepare more, I can practice more, or someone else close to you, they can not be on their phone, they can, take certain actions, they're more in control of the outcome.
Yeah.
That's when I feel that doubt can really influence the amount of fear that you feel.
Right.
So I think that control aspect is something that's important. It's kind of like a modifier of the doubt and fear interaction.
Yes, I definitely agree with you there. When I was first year out of college, I worked at Presbyterian College, and I was a football coach, and we had the head coach there was Bobby Bentley, and he was my high school head coach. And he would always have a saying, like, make it happen, or get it done, like, find a way.
Find a way.
Yeah, find a way. And it's like, that kind of, like, always kind of, like, impressioned upon me that, like, you can't have it, like, there's no room for, like, self-doubt, especially when, like, you are in control of things. Like, you have to figure out a way to, like, get this done and get the most positive outcome that you can get.
Right, and I think, to me, that kind of goes back to the gymnastics thing, where it's like a mental game you're playing with yourself.
Yes.
You only have so much attention, and if you're spending so much of your attention on the doubt that you have about your ability, right? I don't know I can throw this, I don't know if our offense can do it, right? Like, I don't know if I can catch that, like, then you have much less of your attention and focus to spend on doing the thing.
Yeah.
And so if you, to me, what I hear from you saying, I was impressed upon by these sayings was like, just do it, get it done, find a way. That's re-shifting your focus away from any doubt, or sure, there's doubt, we're putting that to the side, and I'm putting all of my focus on what can I do to make it happen.
Yes.
And I think that's a really powerful paradigm, because I think there are certain things in life where you may never have that 100% confidence or 0% doubt. There's always going to be some type of doubt in some way.
It's just a matter of whether you're going to focus on it or not.
Yeah, and so I think that's a really good analogy, and I think it can be applied to sports, obviously, but it can be applied in so many other areas of your life. And, maybe I'm not 100% qualified for this job, but am I going to focus on that and let it prevent me from applying? Or
doubts about my ability.
Yeah, or am I going to put that to the side, write the best, cover letter I can, or, prepare the best, interview day technical talk, there are things that you can still do despite your doubt. Yeah.
And prepare yourself to be successful as opposed to, ruminating on the doubts that you have.
Right. And I think this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but it's related to that concept. Maybe you do have doubt in things, but are you going to let that prevent you from enjoying? I'm thinking about in the context of relationships. Maybe you have some doubt about. Maybe it's not faithfulness, but maybe you just have doubt about whether your relationship is going to continue, or you have doubt about, is this the right person, whatever. You can focus on that and let it really consume you, or you can say things are going to run their course, and can I put that doubt aside and still enjoy my day-to-day independent of the state of my relationship.
So I kind of feel a little bit different about the relationship piece.
But yeah, I think what I just said is not something I can really do or ever have done. I always am thinking about these things, it's very hard for me to put that aside.
Well, and I think in a relationship, you should not be putting the doubt aside. You should be listening to the doubt. If there is doubt, it needs to be addressed.
No, I totally agree with that. I guess I was more thinking of not necessarily I'm just going to be fine in this relationship even though I have doubts. I was meaning more in the rest of your life, right? I think a lot of people...
So don't let the doubt in your relationship affect the rest, your happiness in the rest of your life.
Yes.
Which is really hard to do.
Really hard to do, right? I'm not saying I can do this. I'm not saying anyone can do this, but I think you bring up a good point that sometimes doubt is important to listen to.
Yes.
Right? I have doubt that I can do this skill on the high beam because I've only made it twice on the low beam. Don't do it on the high beam. That's asking to hurt yourself. Listen to that doubt. I have doubt that this is the right person. Do not say yes. Do not buy the ring, right? I think you make a really good point that sometimes doubt serves a purpose.
Yes. Well, it's funny too, because as I'm sitting here and you're telling doubt serves a purpose. The absolute last thing as if I'm coaching somebody that I would want for them to do, or I look negatively upon them.
I'm listening to my doubt coach, right?
I coach right. I can't do this. And
I'm listening to my doubt.
And as I'm talking about this, I'm maybe there is a place where there's a happy medium of listening to your doubt, but not letting it affect you, because
or listen to it in relationships, but not in sports.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah,
unless it's about being.
Oh my goodness! Because I've definitely I've experienced having
bad relationships.
Doubt about relationships. I wouldn't necessarily say
Sorry,
it definitely would have effects in the rest of my life. And I would say that I kind of learned I kind of have a motto of my life needs to be in balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that when I was in relationships that I had doubt about, my life was not in balance. And so I would do some wild and reckless things in order to kind of create balance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it just wasn't a healthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I think definitely if you're in a relationship, like, you should listen to, like, those doubts and try to, like, address them. So I think more than anything else, like, we always have a saying, like, listen to your body.
Yeah.
If you have doubts, like, there's a reason why you have doubts about something. And it's important that you listen to those doubts. You kind of try to, like, assess them, understand where they're coming from, and then ultimately, like, you need to address them. Either you're changing the situation that, like, is creating those doubts, changing the people, like, something needs to change.
Right. You have doubt about your ability to perform the skill in the high beam. Let's do some more on the low beam.
Yeah.
Or let's do some with a spot or a mat, right? Like, so that your fear of what happens as a consequence if you don't do it right is lessened, right?
Yeah,
or
you also increase the things that you can control. Right?
Yes, right? Or I have doubt that I'm prepared for this technical talk. Okay, I'll
prepare more.
More.
Go over it more.
Yeah, go over it more. I have doubt that I can purchase this car and pay the monthly payment. Okay, well, might want to choose a different model of car. Yeah, you know,
or like, a pay period. Yeah, has a lower payment.
Yeah, I need to rethink the terms of this loan, right? So I definitely think that doubt can be really useful. But I still feel in all of those scenarios, like, the driving factor behind the doubt is fear of that unwanted outcome. And that without the fear, like, the doubt really doesn't matter. Right? Why would if I have no fear of making the payment, why would I have any doubt about it? If I have no fear about not getting offered the promotion, or not being prepared for the talk, why would I have any doubt about my ability? Do you know what I mean? Like, I still feel like a critical component to doubt is the fear of an unwanted outcome.
So you don't think doubt can stand alone?
Yeah. Or if it can, it's in things that, like, don't really matter, and so you're not invested, right? Like, I doubt that I'm going to flip a coin 8 times in a row and it lands on heads. But does it, like, that has no consequence in my life, so I'm not going to really think twice about it. Whereas if it's like...
But you still have doubt. Like, that you doubt that can happen.
Right, but is that going to really change my behavior? It's only going to change my behavior if there's something riding on it. Like...
Yeah, but, like, in flipping the coin, like, there is no... I guess you're saying because there's no outcome. Like...
Yeah, I can still have the doubt, but I'm not going to change my behavior as a result of the doubt. Right? I'm only going to change my behavior if there's
a feared outcome.
A feared outcome. Right? Like, oh, hold my beer, let me make this trick shot. I have zero confidence I can make it, almost 100% doubt. But my friends are going to laugh if I make it or laugh if I don't. You know, that's not going to change my behavior in attempting this, like, a basketball trick shot.
So
even if I have high doubt of me making it.
But that doesn't mean, in my opinion, that doesn't mean the doubt doesn't exist.
It doesn't, that's correct, but it doesn't change my behavior. I totally agree with you. You can have doubt on its own. My hypothesis is that you don't do anything because of the doubt unless there's also fear.
So I oftentimes see the doubt as, like, not necessarily changing a behavior that you have, but it's more of, like, I have doubt, so there's inaction. Not, I have doubt, so I change something.
That's another opposite, because usually for me, I have doubt, therefore I actively do something different. Whereas to me, what it sounds like you just said is you have doubt, therefore I do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely how I see it.
Huh. Yeah. Interesting. So if there was a situation, so come up with an example where you feel like you have doubt and there's, why are you laughing?
Could you like just come up with a situation? I'm like, I don't know.
I haven't even heard my.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can come up with situations all day, so I just assume you can too. My bad. But I was gonna say, give us an example where you feel like you have doubt but no fear.
And I would say that like in situations where I have doubt and like no fear, like it oftentimes involves other people, or like it never involves me. Like, and I actually like think this is a good segue into like I kind of like separate doubt into like self-doubt and then like just doubt of like situations or people, which is kind of like completely separate for me.
Yeah.
Like,
and therefore no consequences to you, so there's no bad outcome you're trying to avoid. There's no fear, so it's like whatever.
Yeah, I just doubt. Like, I still doubt that like the thing is gonna happen.
Right.
Like,
I doubt the Broncos are gonna win.
Yeah, the Super Bowl this
year. I doubt the Cowboys are gonna win.
The Super Bowl this year.
Any game this time.
We'll win. Like, you can doubt it, but it's gonna happen. We're gonna win some games. We play in the worst division. Like, we're gonna win some games.
Touched a nerve there. I'm just teasing, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I totally agree with you. We have no control over it. It's external. It's not us, and therefore we're less invested. Like, we're not afraid of it whether our doubt is correct or incorrect, and it doesn't change our behavior. I guess the one scenario where the doubt plays a big role is like gambling. If you're doubting the Cowboys are going to win, you're probably not going to bet on them, right? But if you do make a bet, now you're super invested and you do have a big fear. What if I lose all that money? Like, whether, even though you have no personal control, but I guess one could argue you had control over making the bet.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just
I get like
rambling.
I think all of the situations that I can think of where like I have doubt, but like I just don't. It's not personally connected to me. It's about like other things that maybe I'm just observing, or like information that I'm privy to based off like past experiences that like I have doubts. I have my doubts about this, but there are no fears.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I think we talked about doubt motivating you either to take inaction or to take more action. And usually in the examples we've discussed so far, it's been like preparing more or doing more things. I also think doubt can be, in the scientific context, like I'm actually surprised I didn't bring this up until so late in the podcast, since I've done science for so long and love science, but science is based on doubt, right? Like, I don't think this is because of this. I think it's because of this other thing. And you can never prove that something is because of something else. You can only prove that it's not because of that, right? So I can always show it's not this, but I can never perfectly show it is this. So all of science is, like, you never set it up to be, I guess that it's because of this. You say, I guess that it's not because of this, and then you set up an experiment to prove that it's not because of that. And you're like, so it supports my guess that it is because of this, but I can't prove that. So you try to be like, here's all the possibilities in the world, but I'm going to knock them out one by one, except for like that one thing. But the problem is, you never know if you've really come up with all the possibilities in the world, or if there's something else you just didn't think of or don't know about, right? So that's why you can never prove that it is that thing.
Yes.
So I think doubt can also cause you to just investigate more or do more research, get more information. So maybe that's not preparing, practicing more or whatever. It's just an inquisitive thing. I have some doubt about this, so I'm going to pay more attention and try to learn more about it. Whether that's like political things, I have doubt that this person is going to do well about this candidate or about this policy. Therefore, I'm going to look more into it. Oh, it turns out I had a wrong understanding, or like, oh no, it turns out this is, ridiculous. What be it? But if you don't have any of that doubt, then there's nothing prompting you to learn more about it. So I do think that doubt can be almost as powerful as curiosity in motivating you to pay more attention, be more observant, like learn, just gather more facts. So I think in that way it can be really helpful too, and that might be another example where there's not a lot of fear associated.
Yeah.
But it's still
you have a lot of doubt.
Yeah.
About things.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think it's good to have doubt, right? Instead of accepting like
everything that comes
your way.
Believe anything. You'll believe it. If you don't stand for anything, you'll believe anything.
Yeah. So doubt.
If you don't doubt some things, you'll believe anything.
Yes. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that's what we've been doing.
All right. Deuces.